Welcome back. Last part of chemical bonding. So, we were discussing about valence bond theory, and now valence bond theory based on hybridization. So, now first of all, let us discuss hybridization. We are not going so deep into it, only the basics of hybridization we are going to talk about. So, Linus Pauling in 1931 proposed this one. According to him, hybridization means redistribution of orbitals, or rather, we can say merging of orbitals, such that the total number of orbitals remains the same. So, equal number of orbitals will be there. So, how many orbitals are merged, whatever it is, again we will have the same number of orbitals. So, this is a very interesting part, right? So, this has come into existence when we have seen that there is a variation with the practically observed shapes of the molecules and theory based. So when there was a difference between the two, so after observing the practical things, right, from the experimental phenomena and all that, so now people started searching for a theory where which can justify why we are getting so and so particular shapes to the molecules. Thus, this has come into existence. Let us see an example of carbon atom here to understand hybridization. So in carbon atom, we have valence electrons to be 4. What is the electronic configuration? 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. So here, first shell is totally filled. In second shell, you have 4 electrons. So those are the 4 electrons, the valence electrons of the carbon. In excited state, we call it as in excited state, what happens is this one electron from this AS orbital will jump to the p orbital, making this as 2s1 2p3 2p3. So therefore, what are there now? Unpaired electrons are there in. Yes, the only one electron is there. When we talk about p here, you have px, py, pz, is it not? So therefore, in px only one electron, py only one electron, pz only one electron. So this is how we can see it here. So 1s is totally filled, 2s is totally filled. This is 2p, in px 1, py 1, and pz is totally empty. But in excited state, this part, whatever 2s 2p is there, no, it will convert as, so one electron from here will jump to pz. So thus you will have one electron here, and all these are unpaired electrons. So how many electrons are available now in unpaired status? 4 electrons are available in unpaired status. So now here it is something like, instead of seeing s orbit and p orbit, now these all the things will merge together, right? That means mix together, and one, that means one s orbital and 3 p orbitals. One s orbital and 3 p orbitals together will form sp3 hybridization. So hybridization means what? Combining two species of two different characteristics, is it not, in order to yield something which is much more efficient than the parent, is it not? So that is how you define hybridization in biology. Similarly in chemistry, so we have 1s and 3p's together will form sp3 hybridization. So therefore, what is happening? How many orbitals are formed? Before only we defined. So how many you have the orbitals merging together or like hybridized together. So those many orbitals will be there even after that. That means how many? 1s, 3p, together there should be 4. So in sp3 hybridization, you have 4 orbitals again. 4 orbitals. So how are these 4 orbitals? So here something like, so this is a dumbbell shape, px, vertically it is py, and this is pz. Okay, so when this is combined with the s orbital, now the other end of this, whatever is there, that will not be of the same size. It is something like very small. See, this loop will become very small, and this loop is a little bit big. This is have one sp3 hybridized orbital will turn to be. Can you see what I'm drawing? So this is a single sp3 hybridized orbital. So now these four combined together. In fact, in the combination, when we directly combine, we feel as if they are like mutually 90 degrees. But see, sp3 hybridization always yields a tetrahedron shape, and the angle between each orbital will be 109 degrees 28 minutes, right? So this is how sp3 hybridized orbitals will have a structure of tetrahedron. Now we can explain the methane structure. So one carbon and three hydrogens. Methane, CH4 is not, I'm sorry. So four hydrogens. So what happens here? Hydrogen is having spherical shape. So this is how all the hydrogens are forming bonds with each sp3 orbital. So what is the name of the hybridized orbital now? sp3 orbital. We won't say that s orbital, px orbital, py, pz. No, it is sp3. What is the name of each orbital? Is of sp3. Now with each sp3, s is combined. That means in hydrogen what you have? S orbital, that is spherical in shape. So sp3s, 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 sp3s bonds are formed in case of methane. So this is how we can explain sp3 hybridization. So what is very important here is that sp3 hybridization means 3 p orbitals and 1 s orbital combined to give 4 sp3 orbitals. Combined to give 4 sp3 orbitals. And sp3 hybridization, on sp3 hybridization, so whatever the angle between the orbitals, it is 109 degrees 28 minutes and tetrahedral structure. Okay, so children, now take the screenshot so that we can proceed to sp2 hybridization. So here what is happening? From paired s orbital. So in s orbital previously 2 electrons are there. Now in excited state, one electron jumps to pz, so that 4 unpaired electrons are there, and these 4 unpaired orbitals will combine together to form hybridized orbitals, and each hybrid orbital is named as sp3, and we will have 4 sp3 orbitals forming tetrahedral structure. You can explain methane based on this. Okay, so take a screenshot here as well as this one. Now sp2 hybridization. From name it is very clear. 1 s orbital and 2 p orbitals combine together to give 3 sp2 orbitals. Each orbital's name is now sp2, right? Because it's a hybrid of s and 2p orbitals. So therefore sp2 is the name of the new orbital. And here how many orbitals will be there? 3 orbitals will be there, because 1s and 2p are combined, and here the resultant will have same number of orbitals. So 3 sp2 orbitals. So here you have it as 3 sp2 orbitals. And now usually whenever we talk about sp2 hybridization involving carbon, so we take this as the best example, right? And here one double bond will be formed and 2 single bonds. All these details you will be learning again in carbon and its compounds. Okay, so just now to make you people understand what is sp2 hybridization, we are giving an example here. Right, see, when it is of single bond, you have 2 sigma bonds. So that is between sp2, 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 and then next the other one is pz and pz. So therefore here you have one p orbital left like that without being hybridized, and the remaining are all hybridized, and then sp2, sp2 hybridization takes place in case of 2 carbons combined together with hydrogens. Okay, so this is like So whenever lateral combination is taking place, pi bond is formed. Whenever along the axis the bonds are forming, so that is sigma bonds. Okay children, so in sp2 hybridization you have 3 orbitals, hybrid orbitals, each named as sp2, and the result is because of combination of one s orbital and 2 p orbitals. Okay, so then next one is, so take a screenshot of this first so that we can move on to the next one. So that is sp hybridization. From the name now it is very clear, 1s and 1p orbital. So only 2 orbitals are the resulting orbitals. Each orbital is called as sp orbital. So one single bond and one triple bond. Usually whenever it is of carbon, so 2 carbons, so with a triple bond between them, and it is open for the other bond, like being chemically combining with the other elements. Usually we talk about hydrogens here. Okay, so take a screenshot of this. So now what is sp3? 1s and 3p orbitals combined together, and sp2 1s and 2p orbitals combined together, and sp 1s and 1p totally combined together results in hybridized orbitals. Next, beryllium chloride. Based on hybridization, now we are going to discuss the structure of the beryllium chloride molecule. And whenever in the examination, if it is asked like structure, means you have to go with valence bond theory only. When it is asked as Lewis dot structure, then you have to use the Lewis dots and explain what we have studied in covalent bond. Right? So this is very important for you to understand what is the difference here. Whenever the question is asked for structure of a particular molecule, then you have to discuss about the which shape, like how, what is the bond angle and what kind of bonds are formed, right? So now here beryllium chloride we are taking. So if you observe the electronic configuration of beryllium, it is 1s2, 2s1, 2p1. So now 2s1, 2p1 in the sense, in second shell you have two unpaired electrons, one being the s orbital, the other being the p orbital. So these two combined together give us sp hybridized orbital, and there are two orbitals here. So there are two unpaired electrons. So two unpaired electrons ready to react with. Now if you observe chlorine, it is 1s is totally filled, 2s is filled, 2p is filled, 3s is filled. Now 3p x2, 3p y2, 3p z1. This is how the electronic configuration is. That means here is one unpaired electron waiting for combination, and here we have two unpaired electrons for waiting for combination. So therefore, to match with this, we need two chlorine atoms in order to form beryllium chloride. So therefore, beryllium you have sp. So can you please observe this one? So this is sp orbital. See, I said a small loop will be there, and this is another sp orbital. These two sp orbitals together, this is beryllium. This is beryllium. So this beryllium is combined with the chlorine, and in chlorine you have pz1, and here, and this is also pz1. So the pz1 is combining with the sp. So p-sp bond is formed, and that is a sigma bond because it is forming along the axis of the nuclei. It is forming along the axis of the nuclei. So two sigma bonds are formed, and each is formed between the pz and sp orbitals, pz of chlorine and sp orbitals of beryllium. And the bond angle here is 180 degrees. Bond angle here is 180 degrees, and the bonds are two sigma bonds. So if it is asked for 4 mark question, first of all you have to define what is meant by hybridization. Then you should speak of what hybridization is taking place here, that is sp hybridization. Then you must write about the electronic configuration of beryllium and chlorine, and how and which particular electrons are going to combine with which electron in the chlorine, and why we need two chlorine atoms for beryllium chloride. And thus then you have to discuss the structure, and after that you have to write the bond angle and the kinds of bonds formed. Clear children? So with all these points you can make it a 4 mark question. So take a screenshot. boron fluoride, BF3 molecule. Same now. I'll quickly finish off this one. Observe the electronic configuration of boron. You have 2s2, 2px1. So excited state 2s1, 2px1, 2py2. What is happening here? 2p orbitals and 1s orbital is combined together to form sp2 hybridization. 2p orbitals and 1s orbital. So sp2 hybridization. So how many such orbitals will be there? Because 3 orbitals are combined together. So resulting also 3 orbitals. That means 3 unpaired electrons are here. 3 unpaired electrons. These 3 unpaired electrons are ready to combine with electrons of fluorine. Where in fluorine you have only one electron which is unpaired. So thus now 3 fluorines are needed to boron in order to form BF3 molecule. So thus this is how it is. So now you take boron. In boron you have 3 sp2 orbitals. So each one, again I am repeating this one, a small loop here and a bigger loop here. This forms a sp, that is hybridized orbital, sp2 orbital. So 3 sp2 orbitals are here with 120 degrees angle between each orbital, or between 2 orbitals successive, and then each orbital, sp2 orbital, is combined with pz orbital of fluorine, pz orbital of fluorine. So here these are sigma bonds, 3 sigma bonds, right? psp2, sp2p, psp2. So this is the bond. Now the bond angle is 120 degrees. The bonds are 3 sigma bonds. So please take a screenshot. Next one is ammonia molecule, NH3. Observe the electronic configuration. First shell is totally filled. Second shell, in fact, 5 valence electrons. So normally 3 unpaired electrons would be there. But here in excited state, this is how we explain, so that we can justify why this particular structure is observed. So what is happening? This s electron, so here one s and 3p orbitals combined to give 4. In the 4 orbitals, if you observe, 3 single unpaired electrons containing orbitals will be there, and 1 paired orbital will be there. So this 1 paired electron orbital will not be participating in the bond, and this 3 single electrons, sp3 orbitals, will participate in the bond. So here when you talk about hydrogen, you have 1 s orbital here with only 1 electron being unpaired, and this will combine with this. So we want 3 single electrons to be bonded. So therefore we use 3 hydrogens here to explain this. So this is how sp3s, sp3s, sp3s bonds are formed, where bond angle is 107 degrees 48 minutes. So here you may say that previously we have taken it to be 120 degrees, ma'am. So why are we taking it as 107 degrees 48 minutes? See, here there is a pair. So lone pair of electrons here without taking part in the bond. These lone pair electrons, as per the previous theories, these lone pair electrons occupy more space, thus pushing the other orbitals aside. Hence the angle is now 107 degrees 48 minutes. Is that clear, children? Yes. Take a screenshot. 3 sigma bonds are formed here. And here the special case is, you will be having 4 sp3 orbitals. But here 4 are not open for bond. Why? Because in one of the orbitals you have paired electrons, and in 3 orbitals single electrons and unpaired electrons are there. Thus only 3 orbitals take part in the bond. Now let's move on to the water molecule, H2O molecule. So here also you can say, like for oxygen, if you observe this one, 2s2, 2px2, 2px1, 2pz1. So here what is there? Again S is combined with P. 4 sp3 orbitals are formed. In this, 2 orbitals have paired electrons. That means 2 orbitals have total 4 electrons, and the remaining two orbitals will have each one single electron, thus forming total 6 electrons. And you know that what is the valency of oxygen? It is 6. So therefore here in out of 4 sp3 orbitals, 2 are totally paired and 2 are single unpaired electron sp3 hybridized orbital. So out of 4 sp3 hybridized orbitals, 2 do not participate in the bond and the 2 remain open for bonding. So to explain this, we need 2 hydrogens here. So therefore, and it is of tetrahedral structure, it is supposed to be, right? But there are 2 lone pairs, is it not? 2 lone pairs which do not participate in the bond. This is how I am drawing here, lone pairs. These occupy much space, thus pushing the sp3 orbitals, and therefore the bond angle is 104 degrees 31 minutes. 104 degrees 31 minutes. So now here each sp3 orbital which is open for bond is combined with the s orbital of hydrogen. So 2 hydrogens, and this is oxygen. The central atom here is oxygen. Right? So bonds formed are 2 sigma bonds. Each name is sp3 bond. So take a screenshot of this. Beautiful concept. If you understand one, remaining all things logically follow the same. So now we are moving to the last part of the chapter, comparing or understanding which particular properties are there for ionic and covalent bonds. You can go through the table here. This is from your textbook only. Afterwards also you can give a reading, or you can take a screenshot and copy in your classwork if you don't have the textbook. So what is NaCl? It is an ionic bond. Mass is 58.5. HCl is a polar covalent. So C2H6 is covalent. And then next here if you see physical appearance, NaCl you all know very well, that is the salt. White crystalline solid. HCl colorless gas, we are talking about dry HCl. And the next C2H6 colorless gas. And the type of the bond, ionic, polar, covalent and covalent. Now what is the difference between covalent and polar? Covalent means here usually whenever a covalent bond is formed, like example you can take HCl. So chlorine and hydrogen are combined together. So here let me show you the picture here. When it comes to chlorine, so only one hydrogen is combined with the chlorine. You can see that in the p orbital, one end of the p orbital is having some minute charges on that end. So that means it is something like partial charges exist with this. Because of the existence of the partial charges, we call it to be a partial covalent bond, that is a polar covalent bond. So which bond we call it as? Polar covalent. That means there is a little bit polarization. Polarization means positive pole, negative pole, like that. So here some partial polarization takes place here. So that means some small amounts of charges will be there with this molecule on one particular end. That such things we call as polar covalent bonds. Okay. So is that clear? Right. So let us move to the table now here. So when it comes to boiling point, ionic bonds are the strongest bonds. So therefore they exist in solid state first of all. Second one, they also have very, very high melting points. You can see the melting and boiling points here. See 801 degrees, very high melting point. And when it compared with HCl, it is minus 115 and this is minus 183. These are very, 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 very low melting points. Right? And when it comes to boiling point also, it's very high. These two are very low. So therefore, when it comes to solubility, so ionic bonds are soluble in polar solvents like water and insoluble in non-polar solvents. Right? So ionic things are polar, they are soluble in polar solvents and but not soluble in non-polar solvents. And water is also what we can talk about, this as also a polar covalent bond. Okay, so the next one is when you speak about polar covalent bonds. Here the example is HCl, but we are talking about polar covalent bonds. Soluble in polar solvents. So like materials will solve in the like solvents, like water, and to some extent in non-polar solvents. Partially they can also be soluble in non-polar solvents because the bonds are very weak here, so they can dissolve in the non-polar solvents also. When it compared with the ionic bond, this is very strong, therefore it cannot be soluble in non-polar solvents. Similarly, the case is here also. Covalent bond also soluble in non-polar solvents, but insoluble in polar solvents like water. So whichever covalent bond you are taking, that is not soluble in polar solvents like water. So these are non-polar because these are polar, hence soluble in polar solvents. These are non-polar, hence soluble in non-polar solvents, but not soluble in polar solvents. Right. And when it comes to chemical activity, highly reactive in polar solvents and reactions are instantaneous. Why are the reactions instantaneous? See, ionic bond is because of combination of ions, is it not? It's easy that one ion goes and sticks with the other ion. So whether splitting or again recombining is easy and very quickly it is done. Therefore, it is instantaneous. And when it comes to covalent bonds, right? So it is something like bond has to be broken and then again bond has to be formed. So for breaking the bond and again for the bond to form, it takes time. So in case of polar covalent bond, moderately reactive, and in case of covalent bond, slow or very slow at room temperature. Reactivity is very slow at room temperature. Okay children, so these points all together also you can combine to write the differences between ionic and covalent bonds. Is that clear? So with this we shall close the chapter, and please give a reading from your textbook. This is totally theoretical. So by reading the textbooks, it may help you in answering many of the theoretical questions from objective.